A lot of people have different opinions when it comes to how they feel about Fear the Walking Dead. It's too dark, it's corny, it is a cheap carbon copy of The Walking Dead, it's stupid, I don't like it, I miss Walking Dead, the Vultures are like a bootleg version of the Saviors. Me personally, at this point in the series, I feel like the series is coming into its own, and it does mirror the vibe, the dark, depressive, sad, at one point feeling hope but realizing that things may not get better vibe air of The Walking Dead. The reason why this review is a day late is simply because I was still kind of grieving over the loss of Nick. On top of the fact that watching the episode made me feel sad because I know that Nick's character is gone and we're going to end up seeing more flashbacks of Nick, and it's going to remind me of how How to Get Away with Murder felt once Wes died. And how it feels now, despite the fact that I like the series, it still feels like there is an opening that will never be filled. That does not mean that in any way that I hate Fear the Walking Dead, because I don't. I just feel some type of way right now that Nick is gone. But let's just get down to this review. Welcome back, guys. I am Sage Valentine. Right now I'm going to review AMC's Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 4, entitled Buried. So pretty much in the beginning of the episode, it's kind of focused on now. Everyone's mourning the loss of Nick, and the scenes are sad as expected. Strand is ready to tell Althea how he, Alicia, Nick, and Lucy ended up here, meaning where they are at this point in time. On a side note, there's a lot of people who are just like, are we ever going to find out what happened when the dam blew up, and where's Troy, and where's Salazar, and where is Edwina Finley's character? I believe we're going to find that out during the second half of this season, if not before we reach the season finale. I'm getting a feeling that we're going to circle all the way back, but right now the story has to deal with the Vultures. Lucy believes that they could have stopped all of what happened from happening. We reached a title scene that appears to be filmed from a camera on some sort of like cloudy, dreary day. Again, I really like these title scenes. I like how they seem to morph and progress with each episode. Then we head to a flashback. It had been a few weeks since the Vultures had shown up. The rations were going thin, so they had to cut them with cattle feed. I'm sure that it didn't taste good, because the impression that I got from watching the episode was that the characters were really grossed out by those cattle feed pancakes. And Strand wanted to put some syrup on, I believe it was Lucy's pancake, but Alicia was like, no, let's keep it, let's save it, ration it for when things get better. Or so they thought it would get better. Madison decides to send groups out for runs at new locations where the Vultures won't be able to follow them, won't know where they're going. Strand believes that this idea was a mistake, and I'm starting to agree with Strand that it essentially was a mistake. That scene with Cole and Strand at the nursery was really cute. Cole realizes that Strand is acting a bit strange and that he might possibly be afraid of him, but we all know that Strand is not getting close to Cole because Dermot Mulroney, I believe that's who played Strand's boyfriend in, I think it was season 2. He was someone that Strand loved, and then he ended up dying. So I guess Strand, like many of the characters in The Walking Dead, at one point and kind of still feel that way, that they don't want to get close to somebody because that will become an albatross when the person dies. And that will become something that weighs heavily on their conscience. So we get a glimpse of some garden walkers because Cole and Strand had a nursery. And it's pretty much a close call for Cole, and Strand ends up saving him. Nick and Lucy head to a library. Lucy's just like telling Alberta or Althea now, like, I just went there because Nick wanted me to go there and it seemed like a good idea. Nick felt like the people at the stadium needed books, but really he was mostly focused on finding books or something for Charlie to bring her back because he was essentially very attached to that girl. And he wanted to help her, but as we witnessed when she shot him, that girl is beyond help at this point. It doesn't mean that at some point she may not change, but as I'm watching the episode now, I can't see her changing. John used to be a cop. He reveals this to Morgan, and he thinks that once all is said and done, once they find Laura, once Al drives Alicia, Strand, and Lucy to where she found the, what's it called? The flag, and basically where they want to go, Morgan's going to bounce. And Morgan and John are close friends, and John feels attached to him. But Morgan says that he's better off on his own. He isn't, but this is how Morgan feels at this point. Naomi and Alicia head to a water park. Naomi finds this SUV or Jeep that they could use, but there's no keys, so she can't start the car. So already I'm thinking somehow, some way, Naomi's going to try to escape. The park appears to have been a kind of sanctuary for some people. They barricaded themselves inside. At one point there were gates, and the gates must have fallen when the herd came. Or other people came, possibly the vultures, possibly the saviors. Some group came and killed all these people. They realize, Alicia and Naomi, that whoever was left there moved to higher ground once the fence went down. And Alicia and Naomi come upon some water park walkers. Strand tells Al that he revealed to Cole that he liked Cole, but he feared what Cole would think of him. Because despite the fact that Strand has changed as a character, he does not want to go back to being the man that he was, the man that character that we met in the first season and second season of Fear the Walking Dead. So back to the water park, Alicia and Naomi have to escape up a slide to get away from water park walkers. And Alicia drops her knife in the dirty water. They make it to safety, traversing the filthy, slippery, dried up slide. And all of a sudden this walker appears and comes after Naomi, and she's knocked down the slide and it heads a certain way, ends up to this circular thing where there's walkers stuck in the middle of that nasty, murky water. It's in the middle, like, I think it's a place where people can slide down, then they head into the middle and kind of splash into the water. Well, that thing is filled with walkers. Okay. Alicia had essentially been talking to Naomi when Naomi got distracted and knocked down, and she was talking about the gun that was up there, and all of a sudden a walker pops up and Alicia is forced to hold on to the barrel of the gun, and or it's like not even a barrel, I think it's like an extension or something of the automatic rifle, and essentially it breaks off. And she ends up sliding down the very same slide that Naomi slid down. And Alicia takes that weapon and she saves Naomi with it. Then Alicia and Naomi are in another area, or they might be in the same area, and they are, and by the same I mean the one where Naomi got knocked off the platform from. And Naomi finds some car keys in a suitcase. And then Alicia finds some medical supplies, and they're gathering up the supplies, and Naomi hands Alicia some binoculars and tells her to look out to the horizon, to the basically look over the land and find where they could look next or possible places they could go if they ever come back. And all of a sudden, Naomi bounces, meaning she leaves Alicia there. Strand reveals to Cole that he has hidden a car at the nursery with provisions in case. Strand reveals to Cole that he has a car and he put provisions of food in there in case the crops failed, and he wanted to run off and he wanted Cole to go with him and they could survive off this food for a month, because Strand says he wants to live and this stash will ensure his survival. Well, Cole wants nothing to do with that, and I'm looking at Cole like, man, whatever happened to Cole, I'm sure he wished that he did take on Strand's offer and go off with Strand. So Cole essentially leaves Strand. He's upset and he drives himself back. Now, Alicia right now is talking to Al, and apparently Strand wasn't the only person that thought about leaving. Naomi got into the car or the Jeep or SUV or whatever, and she made it a few feet before the car basically stopped because the gas tank was empty. Alicia makes it to the car and she's like, listen, you are either with us or not. She's like, I went off on my own and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And apparently the consensus is that not only did Strand think about leaving, Lucy thought about leaving, or at least convincing Madison to convince the others to leave the stadium, and Alicia thought about going as well. Nick and Lucy found a dead librarian who was tied up. Apparently he or she cut their wrists and there's some books scattered on the floor. Lucy found a map and she brought up the idea of taking this map, heading back to the stadium, and convincing Madison to tell everyone to pack up and they could just leave and start over at whatever place she landed on once she opened that book. Mel is such a liar. I know good and well that he and his brother essentially left the settlement where they were staying with their quote-unquote family, and before he even revealed to Madison the true story, I knew that he had something to do with that family dying. And when it was revealed that he and his brother were able to convince the quote-unquote family to stay at the settlement, and then he and his brother left, I didn't even believe that there were wildfires. I think that Mel and his brother started those fires, or started that fire, and essentially killed those people in the settlement and took the supplies that they could and left. Now, Naomi and Alicia are talking again, and Naomi knows in her heart of hearts from being an ICU and ER nurse that the stadium is not going to last and they need to think of some place to go. Cole returns to the stadium without Strand. Madison's like, well, where's Strand? And all of a sudden Strand pulls up with the food. He essentially decides to share the food with everyone, which, as Strand said, was only going to last maybe a day or so. But he never tells Madison the truth, and she smiles at him, thinking that they found all this food on a run. Honestly, on a side note, if I was in Strand's position, I wouldn't tell her the truth either, because Madison appears to be going through something. I don't know what that something is, and it essentially feels like she's at the end of her rope and about to snap, a la Rick Grimes style. And when I say Rick Grimes style, I mean like Rick Grimes season 3, after Lori died and he was a little off his rocker. If you read the comics, you know what I'm talking about. But I feel like Madison is essentially on her way to that. So Nick realized that there was another way to look at the map that Luciana had. And apparently they should go out further from where they essentially were going, because heading to the library, the nursery, and the water park were pretty far. But Nick was like, no, we need to look further than that, find some seeds and some fertilizer, and turn things back to the way that it was and start growing things. I'm just shaking my head like, oh, poor Nick. Poor Nick. So Alicia essentially allows Naomi to talk to Madison, and basically, Naomi says she wants to start an infirmary because things are going to get worse before they get better. Then we get back to the present, and despite the fact that Al is speaking to Alicia, Strand, and Lucy kind of separately, they all agree that they should have left. They could have left, but they wanted to stay and believe that things would get better. They believe that this is why Nick died, and they could have stopped it all. Honestly, I don't believe that, because we don't know that much about these vultures, but from the little tidbits of information, the little teeny storylines that we have heard regarding these vultures, they seem like they're worse than the saviors, because at least Negan and the crew would have put these people to work. Maybe they would have killed one or two who didn't want to go along with the program, but this Mel guy, the El Camino guy, and the vultures as a whole seem like they live up to their name. It seems like they kill people and pick what they can and keep it moving to the next group. And by pick what they can, I mean pick up the supplies that they can grab and head to another place. And I feel like this group is a lot bigger than we think it is. So Al's truck, which is being driven by John, pulls up to an area and it stopped. And this is where Nick, Lucy, and Alicia, I believe, want to bury Nick. Okay. So we get back to now, and Al's truck, driven by John, pulls up to an area and stops. And this is where Strand, Lucy, and Alicia want to bury Nick. Or at least that's what I thought they wanted to. But in reality, they start digging. They end up pulling up this cover, and there's a crap load of guns in this shallow-looking grave. The idea is that the three of them want to go after the vultures. This was their original plan, and they don't need Althea, they don't need John or Morgan. They're going to do this with or without them. And they found a map that the El Camino guy had, which basically details where the vultures as a whole all meet up. That's why I believe that the vulture group is a lot bigger than we think it is. John doesn't want anything to do with this. The only thing he wants is to find Laura. He doesn't want to head down this road with Lucy, with Alicia, and with Strand. I truly believe that Morgan is the main reason why Nick gets buried, because I feel like those three were so consumed with revenge that they were just going to leave Nick's body in a shallow grave. But Morgan convinces them to bury Nick near or under a nearby tree and place a blue bonnet. This is what Morgan puts on Nick's grave. They all start packing up. John sees, I think it was either Strand or Alicia, holding a bag with probably guns and some other stuff in it. But anyway, John realizes that that was Laura's bag, and he learns that Laura's real name, or the name she told Madison and the crew, was Naomi. How he knew this bag belonged to Naomi / Laura was because inside of that bag was the gun that he gave her. Apparently, Naomi didn't make it out of the stadium alive. She died. As expected, John doesn't believe the truth. He wants to go out and find her. Alicia tries to recruit him to come with them to get revenge against the vultures. I do think essentially things will circle around, and John and Morgan will end up back with Alicia, Strand, and Lucy, and they will all deal with the vultures. But at this point, John wants to be left alone. Al says that she will circle back and find out what happened and come for him. But I think that John and Morgan will essentially somehow, some way, either end up with Al and the others or probably cross paths with the Vultures and get caught by them somehow, some way. Morgan decides to stay behind to be with John, like John decided to follow Morgan, because essentially they're besties, and I hope that John makes it out of this half of the season, this season as a whole, because I like him as a character, and he seems to be pretty good for Morgan, because Morgan appears to be opening up again like he did when Rick and Michonne popped up in season 4, episode 11 of Clear of The Walking Dead. Remember when Morgan was kind of off his rocker and Rick and Michonne came to see him, and that encounter forced Morgan to burn down that neighborhood and go out in the world, and he ended up finding Eastman, ended up in the end crossing paths with, I believe it was Aaron and Daryl, and then ending up at Alexandria. Things happen for a reason. So Al and the others pull off. John says to Morgan that Morgan was right. They are always on their own. This episode as a whole, in my opinion, was extremely sad and extremely depressing, but this is the nature of the story that we are at. There's quite a few people who can see the similarities of Fear the Walking Dead to Once Upon a Time, because there are quite a few jumps in the storyline, but there has to be at this point, because we have to know what happened to Madison, and I believe that this whole thing will lead us to cross paths, or the group to cross paths with Salazar and possibly Troy if he made it, and Edwina Finley's character, the black girl. I can't remember her character's name, but I think she's going to pop up as well, and maybe we'll see Tobias soon. I just hope that Tobias has not lost his mind or something to that effect, and he still looks the same, but I think that he's somewhere out there and he's about to pop up soon. But thank you guys so much for being so patient as always with me and for watching my reviews. Definitely hit subscribe if you like what you see and you want to see more. I will be reviewing Big Brother 20 this summer. Also, if you missed my previous reviews and you want to watch them, click on the playlist tab on this channel. I love you guys. Take care, and I'm a lady of my word. I promised you that I would be doing these reviews every week, and I will. And I'll be back to review episode 5, Laura, next week. You all take care. Love you guys. Bye, guys. Bye.